Hi, I'm Debbie Barnett, and before watching tonight's episode of Expert Connect, please watch this short video on the new American Mah Jongg Rules app. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to Majpedia, proudly presented by Mah Jongg, the pioneering app that provides comprehensive information on American Mah Jongg rules, strategies, fun facts and much more. Sign up for a 3-day free trial so you can explore the app. Download the app from the Google Play or App Store. Or pause the video and scan the QR code to take you directly to the app. To learn more about how to use Majpedia, check out the full video. The link is in the video description. With Majpedia by your side, you'll never have to worry again about a disagreement around the Mah Jongg table. And you'll always feel confident when a student asks a question about rules. Majpedia, always at your fingertips, up to date and easy to use. Thank you for watching and for supporting Majpedia, brought to you by Mah Jongg.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Expert Connect. I'm Debbie Barnett, and tonight it's a privilege to welcome a true Mah Jongg expert and educator to Expert Connect tonight. With a passion for the game that has touched the lives of countless students, she's traveled far and wide to share her knowledge and love for Mah Jongg. Her journey as a Mah Jongg teacher has clearly proven her dedication and commitment to preserving the integrity of this beloved game we all know. With a wealth of experience and stories to share, our guest is here to shed light on her love of Mah Jongg and devotion to spreading this love through teaching others. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dana Lange. Dana, it is just a pleasure and honor to have you here tonight. I know how busy you are, so it is special to have you take the time out to be a guest on Expert Connect. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Debbie. You were relentless, so I'm glad to be here.
I had to be. I mean, you know, there are certain people you just have to know a little bit more about their secrets, and this is the only way I could do it. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
Well, we're going to dive right into the questions, and after our questions, we're going to open it up to Q&A. Now, if you're not familiar with using Zoom, while we're starting out, go ahead and find your chat window. You can pop it out if you want, if you know how to do that, and leave it handy somewhere out of the way on the side so that you can ask questions when we're ready for Q&A. And I will be watching my Zoom chat, and I will also be watching my YouTube chat so that we can funnel those questions to Dana. So I'm going to dive right into the first question, Dana. How did you first become interested in Mah Jongg, and what inspired you to start teaching it to others?
Well, originally, my grandmother taught me to play Chinese Mahjong when I was 5. And she was a great gamer, and I was the first grandchild, so she was thrilled to have someone to play games with, but she was very tough. She would beat me and I would start to quiver with a little tear, and she would go, "No crying." So she made me a very tough game player. But I didn't learn American Mahjong until my husband and I moved to Durham, North Carolina. And I met some new friends, and they said, we're going to learn to play Mahjong. Do you want to learn? And I said, sure, but I work in London 3 weeks a month. And they said, no problem. We'll learn, and then we'll teach you once a month when you're back. It was a horrible way to learn.
Oh my goodness. So you traveled. What were you doing back then that you were traveling to?
I was a consultant, and
and then of course you got addicted to Mahjong, and then everything else just
everything else changed. Well, then the lucky thing was that I got pregnant and I couldn't go to London for 3 weeks a month. And so I told my husband, I think I'm going to retire. And so I retired, and I could play a lot more Mahjong that way.
Oh, excellent. Oh, well, that's the way to go.
Right.
For sure. And I hope the kids play too.
My daughter plays. In fact, she lives in Boston, and I was up there 2 weeks ago to teach all her friends to play Mahjong. And So that was very fun.
Oh, that is fun. Excellent. I got to get my grandkids to play more. I don't see them enough, but I'm anxious to get them playing more.
Well,
Oh,
7 years old is the sweet spot to learn Mahjong.
excellent. So then I started, I think, just about the right time with my two.
Yeah,
Cool.
perfect.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I want to know if you can share a bit about your journey as a Mahjong teacher, because
Sure.
the buzz is that you have taught thousands of students. I don't even know if I could give the right amount of the right number, but it's a lot.
It's well over 20,000, but it's really in the last 7 years minus the pandemic been a wave that I could not explain. But I started teaching 25 years ago. A local school was doing a fundraiser where they would invite people to teach enrichment things to adults, and they would charge. And someone said to me, "Well, you're a good Mahjong player. Do you think you can teach Mahjong?" I'm like, "Yes, I've been a consultant my whole life. All I did was teach executives how to be smarter. So teaching people to play Mahjong seemed like a no-brainer." And so that's where it started. And the first time I taught, my friend who was running this fundraiser called me up and said, "Well, your class sold out in 20 minutes and we have a waiting list of about 50 people." I'm like, "Give me the list. I'll just teach them separately." And that's how it started. But the big wave, a friend of mine, Reba, who lived in Durham, also lives at the beach in North Carolina. And she is the one who said, "I'd like you to come to the beach and teach." And that's where it really exploded. And now I teach between 7 and 9 classes a week.
Oh, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I really love teaching. I always wanted to be a teacher, but I never followed that path. So I get to live through that now with Mahjong. It's exhausting. I mean, come on, admit it. It's pretty
Oh,
tiring.
it's exhausting, but I do it to myself. On the days I teach 3-hour classes,
Mhm.
and some days I teach 3-hour classes in a day. Now that's exhausting.
That is exhausting. I used to max at 2 a day, and every once in a while, I just was a glutton for punishment, and I would do the 3. I'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
crazy. One of my instructors that works on my online school as well as teaches a lot in person. She was doing that regularly. I don't know how. Crazy. She's young though, so
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm not young, and I just hate to disappoint people. And when they call and they're like, "I want to put together a class," and I'm like, "Okay, like 5 months, 6 months from now, there's an opening." And I hate that it's so long. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I fit
but
in
certainly a
people.
testament to that you're doing something right, Dana. So
Well,
good for you.
it's a game. It should be fun.
Oh
My
yeah,
classes are very fun because, this is not, nobody's getting credit for this.
exactly, exactly. So what do you find most rewarding about teaching, and what challenges have you encountered along the way? Do
Well,
tell.
most rewarding, I don't know if rewarding is the word I would use. My favorite part about teaching is the communities and friendships that are developed through Mahjong. And there are people who um don't necessarily nowadays have great communities. And so sometimes, they'll come to a Mahjong class and they might know a couple of people in the class, but maybe not many. And then later they'll leave and now these people are their friends, and they take further classes together. And I see them, in new card orientation class in years later, and they're like, "I am now best friends with all the people I play Mahjong with."
Isn't that great?
And
Yeah, it is.
that's
It's a fabulous community.
it is.
It just really is. You make fast friends
You
while
do.
playing mahjong.
You do. And you also discover who you're not going to play with.
Oh yeah, it's not all rosy. We could have another whole episode on that, right?
That's a different episode.
That's a different episode,
Yeah.
which is so true. I mean, it really is.
I
Oh, so
I always want people to play standard mahjong,
yes.
because then there are all the rules are already created. And I say to people, don't make up your own rules in Mahjong, because then you have fights. And I said, if you play standard Mahjong, if there is someone does something that's against the rules, it's not personal. It's like, oh, well, there's a rule for that, and here's
That's a
what it is.
really good point.
And yeah,
Good point.
and a lot of people make up, there's a lot of new things to
Oh,
do
there's
in
so many
Mahjong.
new things, and they kind of drive me a little bit crazy. But because I like to teach the way you're supposed to be taught and the rules the way they're supposed to be taught. And there are a lot of people out there that are teaching these new ways, and people are spreading it around. And
Yeah. And I have in Raleigh, I have a lot of young people I've taught, and they've now made merchandise and that says, don't tell Dana. And so they send me pictures drinking from cups that say, don't tell Dana. And what that just means is they're playing some Mahjong Junior is what I call it. So
exactly. Or, skipping the Charleston.
Well,
our group just skips the Charleston.
Well, skipping the Charleston is about the dumbest thing you can do, because the Charleston is the key to the game.
I agree with you, but there are people that do that. It's,
well,
I always stop that our group always stops at Charleston. We find it easier just to do the first Charleston. Okay, yeah. Well.
No. Well, my whole second level class is just about improving your play through the Charleston. And I tell people, if you don't have, if you only have 2 tiles that don't go for an actual hand, that's the only reason to stop the Charleston.
There you go.
But otherwise, make it. You
have 3 tiles to pass, you go. And then you learn how to deal with it if you get a tile in.
Right. Or more often, what I find people do is they have 6 tiles for one hand and 6 tiles for another.
I'm confused. I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. Yeah. Pick a direction. Yeah. Go one way. Yeah. Having 6 isn't so great.
Yeah. So exactly. I'm with you. What are some of the challenges that you find beginners have when they first start learning?
Well, the number one challenge, and if anyone knows of someone that can make me tiny temporary tattoos, I would like to get tattoos that say, never can you use a joker in a single or a pair, because beginners, for some reason, that's the one rule. They're like, but can I do it if I have Mahjong? Wait, just let me just do it this time. I'm like, no, never is never. This isn't, this is not, there's no exception to this. So accepting that as a rule is a challenge. My other challenge, quite frankly, is, if there are 80-year-olds and 30-year-olds in the same class.
That is a challenge.
Yeah. And, it's a terrible reality that as we get
older, yeah,
your learning slows down. Yeah. And so as a teacher, the hard part is to keep the 30-year-olds moving along and making sure the 80-year-olds actually understand.
Yeah, that's a big point, and a very good one. It is, and it's sad, kind of. You don't want the older ones to feel bad about what's going on either, so you're sensitive to that.
Right.
You want to make the young ones pick it up so quickly.
They do, but there's no reason that 80-year-olds can't learn. It just takes a little longer.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Do you have any challenges with the one bam, which I'm hearing called one birdie bam, one damn bam, one bam bird, and everything else?
One damn bird bam is what my people call it. It's just the normal. I just always, tell people the story about the bird lives in the bamboo, and Mahjong translates to little sparrow, and therefore there's always a bird, and it's going to be the one bam. And I just say, if it's an intricate tile, first question, does it have a bird on it?
Yeah.
If it does, it's a one bam. If it's not, it's a flower.
Right. Right. I mean, there are some, old sets that have the band, the sprout bird or bam or whatever they call it, sprout bam, I guess. But I don't see them very often. I mean, I think they're more collector sets. But as many times as I say, go over the one bam and spend a lot of time, and I even sing this little song to help people remember it. I still see once they are setting up their tiles themselves that one bam in the middle of the flowers. I'm like, what's that doing there?
Well, when I teach beginner mahjong, the very first thing I make everyone do is they work together at their individual tables, and I
Mhm.
make them sort the tiles.
Oh,
And
nice.
that helps a lot because I make them sort them, and then inevitably they'll have 1 through 9 in dots and 1 through 9 in cracks and 2 through 9 in bams. And I'll point out and I'll say, what number does dots start with? And they'll say 1 through 9. And I say, so what's wrong with this
What's
other one?
missing here?
And then they search and discover the 3 1 bam, 4 1 bams that are
Somewhere missing
the
in
only
action.
ones.
Yeah.
And so by making them sort the tiles to start,
Hmm.
it helps them learn that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually do the same thing. So I think it's a great exercise for them,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so any memorable stories or experiences that you've had while teaching that you want to share?
Well, the saddest story is about a woman I had in class who I tried everything, every trick over the 3 days of class to try and get her to learn. And the last day her husband comes to pick her up, and I take him aside and I said, I am so sorry to tell you, but I'm worried that your wife has Alzheimer's. And he says, oh, she does have Alzheimer's. I just needed a break. And I was like,
Well, wait a minute, that's sad and
it
kind of
it
funny at
was
the same time,
it was
but
it was awful because I was like, well, you
yeah.
should have told me that.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and
I
so
mean, he was using the mahjong lessons as a way to get,
it was
I mean, it
baby
isn't funny. It really isn't funny
it
at all, but
It was babysitting, and no one in the class knew her, so no one knew, and,
oh, that's sad.
it was
You can tell too. I mean, you really can tell when somebody's cognitive skills are starting to diminish. And he probably had no idea. He probably thought this was like a recreational thing, easy
right,
to learn. She'll go in and just enjoy herself and had no idea what was involved in mahjong.
right, right.
Oh, that's
So,
sad. Any others?
I've had young people who, have gotten a little too drunk in class.
Wait a minute, you allow alcohol in class?
I teach at a lot of country clubs, and I really can't
Okay,
stop them from
that's
drinking,
true.
and I tell people, I said, "You can drink and then you'll pay me again." Or you can,
That's a good point.
learn in this class, and
Yes.
then you can drink all the time you want after that. But I have had one person get so drunk that the people in her class asked me to throw her out.
Oh
And,
my God.
but that rarely happens.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely don't want that disruption, and that's what happens when you have a little bit too much alcohol in your
One of my
system.
favorite things is I had someone fall asleep in her first class. Um, and I mean, so asleep, she got up from her chair and lay down on a sofa in the room and
Was she
literally
on
went to
medication, do you think?
no, she was not on medication. And so the second class, she was a very combative person. The second class, we're going over things and she goes, well, you never told us that. And I looked at her and I said, I told the class while you were sleeping.
Oh no. That's
You
a pretty common thing I hear, Dana, is that you never told me that. I think that there's just so many details when you're going over the rules that sometimes people's minds just must wander because it's like,
yeah,
well, yeah, you already learned that. Not only did you learn it, but it's in your handout too. So, you know,
yeah.
uh,
I mean, many things I repeat, and I tell them I'm going to repeat certain things over and over again
Mhm.
because those are the most important things. But, and not all learners are the same. I always tell my students, be yourself in class, because I can tell by just the look on your face or the way you arrange your tiles or the questions you ask what you do and don't understand. And I'm good at figuring out how to get through to different kinds of learners. But
That's
but
good.
when people pretend they know things that they don't know, then I can't help them. And lots of adults don't want to say, I don't get this. And so I have to look to, other cues they're giving me when they don't get it.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. And then of course there's the students that are learning that also want to be the teacher.
Oh,
Those
yes.
those are the fun ones.
Yes, and there are the students who I want to tell you, and it's just,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
that's okay.
interesting. You can almost predict certain things, right? After teaching for so long, you can almost predict certain things, and you're going to have a certain number of people that are going to have a challenge, out of X number of people, and the ones that are fast learners and the very rare ones that say come in negative attitude and then just end up they can't learn because they're so negative, they're so worried that they're not going to learn, they're so worried they're going to be embarrassed, and then they never come back because they never gave it a chance. That's
I,
that's
I
sad to
tend
me.
not I tend not to have too many people like that.
Yeah,
I guess that my classes are, they know this is a serious thing. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah, we
but
don't want to have that.
my favorite class to teach is beyond beginners anyway. Um and and I teach people how to think. Once you know the rules, learning the rules is beginner mahjong.
Mhm.
But after that, it's about learning how to think. And those are by far my most fun classes to teach, and the classes that people love to take. I mean, I have groups that take that class 2 or 3 times a year because it's doing exercises that I just pull up a game in real mahjong. I'm seeing it for the first time, just like they are. So every hand is different, and we deal with the scenarios as they come.
Yeah,
And people learn the thought processes that way.
that's excellent. Do you ever do that in person with a computer and students, or is it always online?
No, I only do it in
In
person.
person, that's excellent. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. It's great. That's a great concept, actually. Neat.
Yeah, it's a great, if you don't teach that way, it's a great class.
No, it is. That's a great way to do it. I do so much online in a similar fashion and then regular standard teaching in person, but that's a great way. So see, every day you learn something new. So thank you. I just got
Well,
a
you're
new
welcome.
tip.
Well, the joy and the reason it's good in person is that they have to work together at their tables to discuss. So they're also learning from each other. So it's by far the
I
best
think it's
way.
amazing. I'm excited. Wait, I better write it down because by the time we get off, I'll have to text you or call you or email you to ask you
You
what was it.
you call me, it's fine.
It's so funny because things just go whoop. My God. All right. What advice do you have for someone who's just starting to learn the game? Do you have any tips or strategies that you'd recommend to them?
Okay, well, my first tip is pick a hand at the end of Charleston and just try and play that hand, because new players can't keep multiple hands in their head at the same time. And it's too hard to know, oh, wait, is that something I should call? Wait, am I doing that hand? And just slow the game down to nothing. So pick a hand. And I always tell new students that the best hands you can pick are ones that are just made up of pungs and kongs, 3 of a kinds and 4 of a kinds. Because then you're not going to be heartbroken when one of your pairs is discarded and you can't do anything about it. But the rule of thumb I give them is, if you are doing a hand that has pairs, after the Charleston, you need to have 75% of the tiles that make up those pairs. So if it's 2 pairs, 75% would be 2 of one pair and 1 of another. Because
that's great.
You only get, if you're playing with 4 people, you're only picking 25% of the tiles.
That's right.
So it's a very, very small percentage. If you have 50%,
you need one of each pair.
One of each
you're
pair,
setting yourself up for possible failure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I tell people, you're going to lose 83% of the time this year. It's not 75%, which is what, if there are 4 players, you would think it would be. But because this year the card has more singles and pairs, 42% of all hands have singles and pairs. Or 49%. Last year it was 27%. So there are more wall games than ever. So if you tell people, look, you're gonna lose 83% of the time, it kind of gives them permission to be like, okay, I'm not getting this hand.
That's normal if I lose, if I don't win every game.
Right. And it's good for humans to realize you don't win all the time. Get good with being a gracious loser.
Yeah, that's great. I guess we have to be teachers, psychologists, social workers, the whole bit, right?
I tell all my students, I said, I can analyze and tell you exactly what your personality is by the way you play Mahjong. And that's why I say don't pretend to be someone else, because you can't be someone else and play Mahjong. You have to be yourself.
You have to be, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching, when you're teaching different skill levels, how do you approach the game for the different skill levels? From beginner to advanced. I'm assuming you teach beginner, intermediate, advanced, all levels.
I do, but I beginner is its own world, so that's separate. And then I basically call it beyond beginner, because I can have different people at different skill levels in the same beyond beginner class, because that class meets you at your level. So in teaching you how to think, I also do a lot of strategy. I was a strategy consultant, so I think that way. And I teach people a lot of strategies, and you can only take in so much. So if I'm teaching you something you already know, you don't have to worry about it. You'll learn something I teach you that you don't know. But if you're a relatively new player and I'm teaching you a lot of new ways of thinking, you're only gonna take in maybe 25%, and that's fine. And that will help you get better. You're never gonna come to class and walk away and apply everything I taught you.
Yeah, it's impossible to get it in one strategy class, right?
Right. And even though my strategy classes are 2 or 3 sessions long, usually, even that, the game is so intricate if you really delve into it and really understand all of the
nuances, right?
Right, exactly. That you're not going to remember everything I teach you, but sometimes something will click later, and you're like, oh, I remember what Dana told me, and now I'm going to do that here. So
yeah, and there are people that never delve into strategies. They don't even feel comfortable going to another level, and they're always going to be mediocre players, and that's where they're going to stay. And it's sad to me that they would want to be in that position, because sometimes people don't want to play with that kind of player.
I know. I worry about those people that are just content just to understand how to play, but then
not go any
their
further.
Friends progress and they don't, and then they outgrow them, and then that's hard on the friendships. And I think of Mahjong is that this is mostly about friends. So you be friendly, you're kind, but if it gets to the point where someone isn't progressing, sometimes you have to say, maybe we're not going to be able to play much together.
I know that's such a hard situation to be in. It's a challenge, especially in the city that I live in, because the recreation centers open to every level.
Right.
So there are cliques that start forming, and then the newer players come in and they feel just like outcasts.
I know, and that's and I encourage, like, all my students. I say, look, you were all new once.
Yeah, why do people
Remember,
forget that?
remember what it feels like. And you don't know that the person you're playing with, they might just be a new player. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be a great player. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that they might not be your great friend ultimately. So don't pre-decide
Yeah.
about someone, and help them, because no one likes someone more than the person who is kind and helps them.
That is the truth. That is
And
the truth. And people forget. They forget from where they came. And I don't
yeah,
understand why they forget, but they do.
right. And no one wants to be the person that no one wants to play with because they're a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't be a bitch. Oh, I know this isn't on public airwaves, so I hope it's okay that I said that.
That is. You didn't use any other language, so that's allowed. The B words are allowed.
Okay.
So the next question we've kind of already touched on, about how Mahjong fosters connections. It's such a social game, and then you can, if you want to touch on it again, but I think you really did make the point early on. So anything else you want to say about the connections and social
Just
aspect?
be open, like we are talking about. Just be open to new people. Don't close up. Just because
Mhm.
you learned with 4 people, that doesn't mean those are the only people you have to play with.
Yeah. And do you want to be the kind of person that somebody says, wow, Dana was so great. She welcomed me into her group and I'm a fairly new player and she helped me. I mean, why not be that kind
Absolutely.
of person? Or do you want to be the kind of person that's like, I don't want to play with a new player? I've had people walk out of groups because they weren't happy. And I'm like, what? I mean, how do you get up and start your day in that kind of a frame of mind?
Well,
It just
those people
blows
were
me.
lucky. Those people were lucky if that person walked out, because if
Exactly.
that's the way they felt,
Yeah.
they're not going to be fun for anyone. And,
No.
new players still have a good chance to win also. So just because you're new also doesn't mean you're never going to win.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's sometimes challenging, but
Yeah,
we have to get through it and just help those as much as we can, especially as instructors. So
right.
thank you so much for all you're doing. And do you have anything coming up on the horizon? Any events or new initiatives? I know that you're busy. I know that you're booked out to the kazoo months ahead, but are there ways that people like, I guess I don't know much about when you're traveling, how you do it. Like, what if somebody said, we have a country club here and lots of people that want to learn Mahjong. Can I book you in
Yes.
2025 or whatever?
No,
So
I'm still booking in 2024. That's fine. No,
okay,
there, yes.
just kidding.
So
But
I'll get a
tell me, because I want to know more
yeah,
about
so
how
I'll
that
get a
works.
call from someone, and so clubs call me directly, and
Okay.
they book me, and I tell them, this is how many people you need, and then they do all the work getting the people. But sometimes individuals will call me and say, I want to get in one of your classes, and I'm like, oh, the best way to get into one of my classes is to create a class. So I tell them, this is how many people you need, and then let's find dates. And sometimes people are like, because my beginner class is 16 people. And they're like,
Okay.
I don't think I know 16 people. I said, just ask the 4 people you know. and then let them ask some people. I guarantee it will be filled. And they call me back 20 minutes later. They're like, I have 20 people. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. We'll
Sorry, you
have,
have to tell 4 people they can't come.
right. I mean, but you know, it's a big wave, and that's how that happens. The people I feel sorry for are the people that really don't want to try and create their own class, and they sit on my waiting list and wait and wait and wait until I have someone drop out of a class, and I text and I say, can you make this class? And you know, inevitably they can't, because it's right at the last minute.
Yeah, especially if you want to leave it open to be able to teach elsewhere other than in your own neighborhood.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean, I've pretty much taught my town. You know, I
I
do
like that. Wait a minute, say that again, Dana. You've taught your town.
yeah, and I
Wow.
live in a medium-sized city, so I you know, although I do have some young people in a class next
Mhm.
month that, you know, they were babies when I was started teaching here, so now they're grown up enough that they want a class. But yes, I normally will go to a city and teach, you know, a morning and an afternoon class for 3 days in a row. Or I go to the Bahamas and I teach a morning and an afternoon class, 3 days in an afternoon, or a morning class, 2 days, and you know, stay at that resort. Or, you know, I just, if people want classes, you know, contact
So
me.
make it happen.
I do travel and you know, go do, especially beyond beginner, because
Mhm.
not that many people are really teachers that teach that.
Mhm.
Lots of people can find beginner teachers that teach beginners. The other big thing I do is in April and May, I have what my husband calls my world tour. I do a new card orientation class where I have PowerPoint slides, you know, 60 slides, and I teach everyone the secrets and the tips and tricks and the strategies for the new card, because my friends are always like, why don't you write a book? I'm like, you know, a book doesn't really work because Mah Jongg really changes every year.
Oh my goodness, doesn't it change so
It
never mind the fact that it changes every single time you pass in the Charleston, but every single time you pick from the wall, right? It's a
right,
constant reassessing. So then you get a new card.
right. And teaching new card orientation class is, I found the best thing, because I'll have students, you know, they've taken from me for 5 years, or, you know, they took from me 8 years ago, and they just want to know, what do I need to know about the new card? They know how to play and they know how to think, but they just want to know, what's the insider information on the new card. Now, I don't get any preview of the new card. I'm like everyone else. I get my new card on March 30th, if the mail is good. And I have to, you know, analyze it, and you know, I set up hands and take photos and make PowerPoint slides, and I have to play the new card. The first week of April, you know, my husband will come in and he goes, are you playing Mah Jongg again? I'm like, I am working.
Oh my goodness. I think my husband probably knows what that feels like
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. What are the more common questions that beginner students ask you?
Um, can I change the numbers that are the numbers on this hand? You know, I teach
I
them
like
about
that.
literal neighborhoods and
Yeah.
conceptual neighborhoods, and inevitably they'll want to move some things around, and I tell people they're playing an evens hand. I'm like, look, sevens don't live in the evens neighborhood. And they're like, oh, I just thought I could change that. So
That's
um
the, yeah, that
that's,
makes sense.
and then I think the absolute biggest um thing that people universally have trouble with is remembering right at the beginning which dragons go with which suit. And my pet peeve is that the National Mahjong League prints this card in red and blue
Yes,
and
yes,
green.
yes.
And I have written
Oh,
them and said, let's print it in turquoise, orange, and purple, because then no one is going to think that a purple D means green dragon.
It's just hard to not match the color. So when I'm
Right.
teaching and we're forming hands, people are choosing and forming their own hands. And I'll be like, this is the hand you're going to make, but you're going to start with anything but a BAM. And of
Right.
course, in the beginning, it's like, even though you teach it over and over again, right, about that it doesn't match, the colors don't match. And they're
Right.
like, but it's green. Doesn't it have to be BAM?
No.
No,
And
no.
and the worst part is I also teach a lot of men now. And many men are red and green colorblind.
Oh,
And I'm like,
ugh.
one of my previous jobs, I was a magazine editor, and I'm always editing the card. And I'm always like, okay, cross off the S on any like numbers, because it's any like number, it's one number.
Right.
And you
Good
know,
point.
and so I get these men and I'm like, can you tell the difference between red and green? And they're like, well, I thought I could. And I'll put down a red dragon and I'll put down a green dragon. And I'm like, which one is the green one? They pick the red one. And
That's
it's,
amazing.
this is a pet peeve about modern Mah Jongg sets, because in old Mah Jongg sets, a red dragon is a red cross and a green dragon was a circular filigree little thing. So it didn't matter what color, you could tell by the shape.
Right.
But now that we have red dragons and blue
Dragons,
dragons that
figurable
match,
dragons, it makes it a
yeah,
little challenging.
no one thought about colorblind.
No. Oh my
But
goodness.
but if I mean, the National Mahjong League could make money making a colorblind card, and if they did, I would have all my students just buy that.
Yeah. How can we get this Mahjong League to change? They will not.
I don't know. I've tried. I've gone to the national meeting. They told me, sit down, lady from North Carolina.
Oh, gee. What would be so challenging about changing the colors?
I have no idea. I don't think it would be challenging. I just think, you look at the card from 1937, it looks exactly the same. I mean, very, very little changes. And then, I'm sure you have students who say, why don't you make your own card? And I'm like, no, I want you to be able to play a card where you can go anywhere in the country and play with people and play this and play the same card. Dallas and Houston have made their own cards, and I think that's not good.
Yeah.
Not everyone in Dallas and Houston play those cards, but
But there's a good amount of the communities there that are playing with it. And then
right.
I don't know if the American Mahjong League, are they still in existence? They had their own card.
They had their own card, and I don't know if they still exist. I only know one person who ever played that. And she she showed it to me and I was like, I don't like this card. It didn't have enough hands.
Yeah, interesting. Well, they're working feverishly on the new card right now.
I mean, they are, but who knows? It's like the Oompa Loompas in Wonka. They're
Of course,
working on the new
we're
card.
not getting into we're not going to have a discussion about rules, because that could be another whole event.
Oh, I'd like to, yes, the whole, but I hope as a teacher, I'm certain that it sounds like you do the same thing. Play the rules as they're written, although they're not written well, but play the rules as I teach them to you.
Dana? I mean, seriously. Oh my God.
Yeah, because
challenging.
I tell people, you don't want to fight with your friends.
No.
So play the standard rules and don't throw in extra tiles.
Oh, the blank tiles.
Blank tiles.
Blank tiles. No, no, no.
No.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm sure there could be listeners that play these different ways. I don't teach it. Dana doesn't teach it. None of the teachers that I associate with teach those rules. If you do it and you're having fun, have fun. I mean, what can we say? The only challenge is if you're invited into a game somewhere, or you decide you want to play in a tournament, and now you're going to have a whole new learning curve. So got to
Well,
think about that.
the other thing is, so it's a handicap if you play like with blanks or something. And I tell people, you are not really using your brain to the best of its ability by doing that. And it's Mah Jongg Jr. And there are neuroscience, bio neuroscientists who have been studying, what's good for aging brains. Mah Jongg is the top thing, because pattern recognition and the fact that the card changes every year and you have to learn new pattern recognition is the best thing for your brain. So while you're playing a game and having fun, if you want, if your husband complains that you're playing too much Mah Jongg, you say, I'm preventing Alzheimer's, but if you play Mah Jongg Jr., you're not really doing it.
Exactly. And I'm so happy my husband plays.
Yes.
That, anytime I want to play, it's like, okay, let's play.
That's great.
Fun. Yeah. So do you ever get asked, because I get asked this once in a while, why do they have to make a new card every year?
Well, here's what I say. It is a great equalizer, because Chinese Mahjong stays the same. I used to play Chinese Mahjong when I lived in London. I played Chinese Mahjong. And the problem is that experienced players will always be above new players. It doesn't change. In American Mahjong, on April 1st, we're all in the same boat. So experienced players and new players are alike on April 1st. So it's good for Mahjong that we get a new card, because it keeps it exciting. You learn new things, and you're equal on that day. I mean, the day I lose the most is April 1st.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's kind of like a treat. It's like, look, here's something exciting and new to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it gets boring after a full year.
I mean, I know a couple of people who say, we're just going to play this card. And then they get invited to go play with someone else. And they're like, that card is gone. So
oh my goodness, you couldn't do that.
No.
I just have to tell you, when you mentioned about that just now, it just triggered a story that I will always laugh about it. But I was playing with my sister and two of my aunts, may they rest in peace. And my sister and I both were invited to play with them. So we come in, and this is the most hysterical thing in the world, because it wasn't, I mean, the new card had already come out, and we had our cards. I don't know how this happened, but she and I both had the previous year's card, and we're playing in the game. And all of a sudden, somebody's putting up exposures, and we're like looking, and we're, what the heck are they playing? Right. And then I Mahjong, and I put up my hand, and my aunts are like, what hand is that? Well, both my sister and I had the wrong card that day, and we never realized it. And it was such a funny day. I'll just never forget it. Probably my favorite time with my aunts.
That's wonderful. That's great. I had a friend in a tournament pull out the wrong card, because if it's the odd year they're blue, the even year they're red, and she pulled out the right color. It just was the wrong card.
Oh my goodness, that is hysterical. Oh wow. Okay, so this is a big question, because this is a topic that I just love to talk about it. So I want to hear your take on it. How have you seen, what is your experience, and how the Mahjong community has evolved over the years, and what do you see for the future of the game?
Okay, well, the big thing is, I'm not Jewish. And when I started teaching Mahjong, everyone asked me who came, they're like,
are you Jewish
already? They said, how can you be a Mahjong teacher? Like, you're not Jewish. And I'm like, I play one on TV. It's okay. You know, so it was a big joke. In fact, some ladies in my town invited me. They didn't invite me. They invited my Jewish friend to play mahjong with them, and she couldn't go, so she had me go fill in. They spent the whole night questioning me to try and figure out if I was Jewish without asking me if I was Jewish. And so I knew where they were going with this. So when they'd say, like, where did you grow up? I said outside of New York, and I grew up in Connecticut, but I didn't say Connecticut. I said outside New York. It's like, well, how did you learn to play mahjong? I said, well, my grandmother taught me. And they're like, okay, her grandmother played mahjong. She might be Jewish. I mean, the whole thing. So the big thing I think is that mahjong is no longer just considered a Jewish game. It has expanded way beyond, and no one expects when someone knows how to play mahjong that they had to learn from their bubby. That, you know, people, all mahjong is for everyone.
Yeah.
And
how about the men, the growth of men?
And the men, and my favorite part about the men is when I teach men and I explain to them about scoring, they immediately go, we're not doing 25 cents. We're doing $25. And I'm like, can I play with you? Because, you know, they're new players. But yeah, men. And the other thing is families. Now I teach a lot of, you know, I'll teach a mother and then she's like, oh, my husband would like this. Oh, my children would like this. And then, you know, they're like, will you come and teach our whole family? So when we go on vacation, we can play. And, you know, so it's universally loved.
It really is. And, you know, generations are playing together now, grandkids and the grandparents and the parents. I mean, it's just such a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah.
I don't know why it took so long to get to this point, but the growth is incredible. It's exciting, actually.
How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching since 2006, but playing since I'm 26. And do not ask me how old I am, but you could kind of guess there.
I'll do it. I can get a range. Yeah, I don't. You know, I learned mahjong by someone in the worst possible way, by sitting next to someone who's playing mahjong, and I'm like, oh, this is a nightmare. This is, you know, you can't really discuss it because they don't want to give away information to the other people at the table. And it's like, and I think that the advent of mahjong teachers to the degree that we exist now has really helped. And you know, I don't know about where you live, but where I live, you know, I'll have someone, they'll say, I gave so-and-so your name, and then, you know, that person, every class I teach, I get 3 classes from.
Oh, that's great.
Because everyone loves playing. And, you know, when you can learn in 3-hour sessions, it's doable. It's not scary. It's not bridge, which is, I play bridge too, and bridge is a life's work.
Yeah.
So I think that it's friendlier than
well,
other
bridge,
games.
I've heard that it's destroyed friends.
Oh,
literally.
It has, and duplicate bridge has made bridge mean. And I always say, when I go to someone's mother's funeral, and, you know, it said in their obituary they were a life master in bridge, and I say to my friend, oh, I'm so sorry they spent $300,000 of your inheritance to get to be a life master in bridge, and they didn't get anything for all those points. I mean, it's not like getting a ticket from Chuck E. Cheese that you can turn in for a yo-yo.
Oh my goodness. Oh golly. Okay. Well, you're definitely giving me some good laughs tonight, Dana, which is
good.
Great medicine. Oh, so we're going to come down to the final question, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. All right. What are your personal favorite aspects of playing mahjong, and what keeps you so passionate about the game and teaching it?
Well, my favorite aspect in playing it is the, you know, myriad of possibilities. And, that I teach Mahjong to play to win. It's an offensive game. So in teaching it, I like to teach people to, you're not out until the last tile you need for repair is gone or the last tile is picked. And I love seeing people who thought that they had no hope win and realize I still had a chance.
Yeah, the person, especially the new student who starts out with one of every tile and tiles that just don't get along.
Right.
And it's the ugliest hand in the world to them, and they're the one that ends up mahjonging. So
right. I tell everyone when they turn over their tiles so many times, I'm sure you have this happen. New students say, oh, I have a terrible hand. I'm like, you don't have a hand. You just had a deal. You're not dealt a hand.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Everybody else at the table's hand is also a dog's breakfast.
Right.
It's up to you to improve your hand through the Charleston. So don't just, there are some people who always think everyone else has it better.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes I'll take a picture of everyone's hand and show that person who thought that they had the world's worst hand after the game is over. Here's what everyone else had. You see, no better than you.
Yeah. And, or what about the situation where, but I only have one of those. I need 4. So why would I do that? Well, wait a minute. We've got 99 tiles to pick from here.
Right.
Not that you have 99 tiles to pick, but there's a lot of things change very quickly, and there are jokers in the set. What?
Well, and here's the thing I teach people about jokers. Yes, there are 8 jokers, but they play more like 12. So if player A makes an exposure and has a joker, and player B exchanges that tile and takes their joker, now that one joker is counted twice because player A had it.
That's great.
Made their grouping, and now player B has it, and now if they expose something with a joker and player C takes that joker, now that same joker is counted 3 times.
It's like regifting.
Exactly. And so when people say, well, there's only 8 jokers, yeah, but that's not the way it works in reality. As you exchange for jokers, that is like multiplying the jokers.
Yeah. That's a good point. Dana, you've given us some great information tonight. Oh my goodness. Thank you. This has been such a fun interview. So let's go ahead and open it up now to Q&A, and I am going to remove myself from the spotlight. So give me 1 second, and I'm going to put you up close. Now everybody can see you. All right, let's see what we have here on YouTube. Okay. Carol asked from YouTube, do you teach on the coast or the Outer Banks?
I teach all over North Carolina, and I teach up and down the coast. I haven't gone to teach in the Outer Banks, but I would.
See, and she told you how to go about making that happen. Very good. Excellent. Sue said from YouTube, I am teaching some people who are over 80. They really want to learn, but memory is a problem. We just keep trying.
Okay, so here's what I try and do if I have people that have trouble with memory. We pick one hand for each person. And regardless of what tiles they're dealt, they're going to try and make that hand. And it's amazing how often they can do it. I would never do this in a normal setting, but with people that have trouble with memory, we're going to learn they're going to learn one hand, and it's going to be an easy 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind.
Brilliant. Okay, Sue, I hope you can take away from that. Okay. And Carol just made a comment, with teaching 20,000 people, you must have a million stories. That would be a fun bathroom book, Dana.
It would. I write a daily blog, so a lot of my stories get in my blog.
Oh, yeah. And that's amazing that you do that, by the way. I love your blogs. They're
Well,
just so great.
thank you.
And Carol said, do you limit the size of the class? And you did mention 16 to the beginner class.
16 is beginner and 24 is the limit for beyond beginner. And new card orientation class is 100 because it's a lecture class.
Mm-hmm. All right. And Sue had another comment here. I have a wonderful bunch that I taught, and it's made me better. It's really about knowing the rules, the card, and making decisions are the biggies.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Keep teaching.
Sue. Yeah. And then Carol said, I bet your classes are fun. Well, I'm not sure. Are they fun, Dana?
The only way I can keep doing this is they have to be
They
fun.
have to be fun, right?
They have to be fun for me.
But you're strict, right? I mean, you are.
I'm strict, but they're still fun.
Yeah, good. You have to make it fun because otherwise they're going to run.
Right. Well, sometimes when I have people, sometimes if someone takes beginner class and they don't play right away, because I tell people, look, you have to play right away. You're going to forget what you've learned. If you don't play, you're not going to retain it. And so then they show up at like 6 months later, they might show up in another class. And I look at them, I go, you're going to know some of the jokes already.
That's good. That's good. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see now. I'm going to turn now to Zoom, which is on my other monitor here. Robin asked, what advice do you have for doing the Charleston when there are only 3 players? I've found numerous ways, or skipping it entirely. Oh, Dana, she's got the answers here.
I'm chomping at the bit to answer this question.
Okay, go ahead.
So 30 years ago, the National Mah Jongg League says that when you have 3 players, you don't do the Charleston.
Yes.
That is worse than poking your eyes out with needles. I mean, not doing the Charleston is not acceptable. So the way I advocate is that we call the empty seat Ruth for Ruth Unger, who was, bless her soul, the president of the National Mah Jongg League. She passed away some years ago, but we still call the seat Ruth. At the beginning of the game, 3 tiles are picked out of Ruth's wall and put in front of her wall. And those are the only new tiles that are added to the game. And then you do the Charleston. So if you pass to Ruth, you put your tiles down on the tiles that Ruth passes goes on to the next person. And then if you pass across, the tiles that are in front of Ruth are passed with the person across. And at the end of the game, Ruth is really nice. She always courtesies 3. But at the end of the game, you have 3 tiles left and they go randomly back into Ruth's wall.
Now, what do you do as far as possible joker if there was a joker in those?
It's the luck if you get it, but what you do when you play with 3 people is the position for Ruth moves every 3 games. So everyone gets an opportunity to receive the first 3 tiles from Ruth. I love that,
Dana.
And that way it's the most like playing with 4. You're not introducing a lot of new tiles. I do not like when people say, well, we pick 3 new tiles every time. This way it's only 3 tiles. And if everyone has a chance at getting Ruth, then it works out in the wash.
I really like that.
If you search my blog is called Less Dana. If you just put in search 3-handed mahjong, I have the written instructions for it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It'll be an article in Mahjpedia, my new Mahjong rules app, which has just come out. So we're very excited about that. It's on Google Play and Apple Store.
Yay, good for you.
And I will make an article and credit you for that style of 3-player mahjong with your blessings, please.
Yes, please go ahead. I am dying to standardize 3-person mahjong. And I mean, I've played every possible way. Go and play with
Yeah.
other people, and I'm like, this way is still the most fair and fun.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And before I go back to Zoom, and I'll finish up in Zoom, Carol just said, wonderful visit. Thank you for persisting, Debbie, and for being here, Dana. So,
Well, thank you, Carol.
all right, now let's see. Sandra's, oh, wait a minute. This was the same. Robin also asked, how often do you get to play Mahjong with your busy schedule? That's a great question.
I play once a week with my sharks.
Once a week. So there you go.
Once a week.
Oh,
Yeah. I still
wow.
play. I mean, I play online all the time, but in person, I still
Yeah.
play once a week.
Cool. And then Sandra said, I'm amazed that you feel the optimum age is 7 to learn. Just choosing a hand can be intimidating, and attention span for most kids that age might not be long enough to really learn.
No. First of all, for 7-year-olds, they can learn the whole thing in 3 hours. 7-year-olds, so Mahjong is about pattern recognition, and the skills that third graders, basically, it's really third graders, are mastering in reading and math are pattern recognition. So their brain is already primed to understand that. So it's they'll pick it up amazingly quickly.
Yeah, and I found that with my grandkids. I think I started when they were 7 and 9.
Yeah.
The two boys, the brothers, and I just was floored at how quickly they picked it up. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. That's a great age to do it. And then the same lady said, I agree that forming friendships at the Mahjong table is normal, but I have also heard that there are no friends when you're playing. You have to try to make sure you win by knowing what not to throw, etc. Wow, that's another good point, Dana. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I quite understand her point. Is she saying she's not going to throw away a tile that she knows someone needs to win?
Well, I think you and I think we might have touched on it. I'm not even sure if it was pre-show or during the show, where you said if you play by the rules, you don't have to worry about ruining friendships. And I think what she's saying is that, when you're playing Mahjong, you really can't form friendships because of the fact that you have to play by the rules and play defensively. But
No, well, so here's where I stand on this point. Mahjong is an offensive game. If you are naturally a defensive player, you will never win because you can't keep tiles you think other people need if you don't need them.
right,
You have to
sabotage yourself if you do
right.
that.
So if that's your game stance, and there are people who are natural defensive players. I know she wants this and I know she wants that. I'm keeping them. Well, you've just guaranteed that you're losing.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone, you play offensively at all times until you know you have no chance to win. And then you switch to defensively. And I have a lot of information about how to play defensively. That's another class, another talk. But the part about there are no friends, if you're following the rules, you're all friends. It's just a game.
Yeah.
It's if someone does something that's against the rules, it's not a personal attack to point out that something is a rule. It's just a point of reference that there's a rule for that. And if everybody plays for the rule, by the rules, it's a lot friendlier.
Yeah.
Someone was talking about on Facebook somewhere about friendly games. They said people play friendly games, and they didn't want that to be a way of talking about it, acting like people that play by the rules aren't playing friendly. I say that playing by the rules is friendly because it's not personal. If someone does something wrong, it's not about them. It's just about the rule.
I agree with you. We can't have the word friendly, which is thrown out there a lot, and I deal with it myself on my Facebook group, but we can't have friendship equal not playing by the rules, because
Right.
Mahjong is a game of rules.
Exactly. And exceptions to rules.
And exceptions to rules, exactly. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with table rules, but you're not changing the core of the rules.
Right.
You're adding a little twist.
And if you have table rules, make sure everyone actually understands what they are. I suggest write them down.
Yeah.
Because then when it comes up, you can go to where it's written. It's not one person thinks one thing and one person thinks another.
Yeah. Okay, so I have some questions here, and this is from Heath. And he said, today I played with a one bam that was barely distinguished from the flowers. Do you find that to be the case in some sets?
I wonder if it was an old set that, I need to text my husband to get my power cord. I'm losing power. If it was old and it had been cleaned a lot and the colors had been washed away, that's the only time I could see that.
Yeah, I do. I
How
know
about
that
you?
some very older sets, some of the flowers do not look like flowers, but you know, I mean, not flowers, the bams, the bird. And that would be the sprout, which doesn't look like a bird.
Well, in that case, what I say is put a little sticker on it.
Yeah, there you go. That would help.
I mean, it won't hurt the integrity of the tile. You know, some people say paint them, and I'm like, no, because you know, if it's a valuable set, you don't want to do that. Just put a little sticker that has an acid-free sticker.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Heath also wants to know, do you have any books or digital sources that you recommend to explore strategies?
No, because as I said, they change with the card. And so I haven't come across anything that I thought was worth the paper it was printed on.
There you go. Okay. There you go. And Heath also wants to, she's got a lot of questions here. Do you have an opinion or thoughts about how much skill versus luck is needed to play well and win often?
Okay, so here's my thought about luck. Everyone at the table has exactly the same amount of luck. It doesn't get distributed evenly, but over time it does. People that say, oh, she always gets all the jokers. I'm like, I would like you to start keeping track of how many jokers you all get over 3 months. And you will see over 3 months, it's completely equal. So what was the other part of that question?
How much skill versus luck is needed to play well and win often?
Well, the skill is the thing you have control of. You have no control over luck. And so the only thing you can control is skill. So to win and play, to play and win often, I think you need to play fairly regularly for at least a year. And that's playing with real people and playing online. And, you know, I encourage all my students to, you know, play an online game. Don't play one that gives hints. The people that use hints, once they know their hints, that's all they do is use the hints.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the more often you play, the better you'll get. And play with better people if you can.
All right, here's a good, this is the last question I can take from Heath, and because she's got a lot of them, but I've got to get to other people. So I've been picking a few of them out that I think are most interesting. Do you agree or disagree that anyone who wants to teach Mahjong should give it a try?
That's a really loaded question.
I figured that's why that's one of the ones I wanted.
That's one of the ones you're asking me to give that answer.
Yeah. I'll share in it with you. I'm happy to.
Okay,
but
I've seen a lot of bad mahjong teachers.
Yeah.
And I mean, I won't name any names, but there are people that, you know, charge people a lot of money and tell them that they can learn to play mahjong in an hour. And I'm like, BS. You know, or I've seen people that they're like, to draw people in to learn to play, they say it's going to be short, and then they don't do all the basic foundational work of learning what the tiles are and understanding how to read the card, and they just kind of throw people into the deep end and start explaining the rules. And if you don't understand how to read the card, you'll be lost.
You're never. And if you don't understand the dragon suit relationships, that's it. Your game is really
exactly. So the answer is no, not everyone can teach mahjong.
Right. And my whole feeling about that is seeing a lot of, I have, you know, I live in a unique city, and there are teachers that volunteer their services all over to teach, but they're not equipped to teach.
Right.
But they do it maybe for the notoriety or whatever. But my thing is, if you want to teach, you got to learn how to teach. You got to know the rules, and for God's sakes, have a copy of Mahjong Made Easy.
I mean,
at the least.
At the very least, it's and that's not my number one choice. But well, yes, there are you know, there are people that they're like, well, I'm a good mahjong player, I think I can teach it. And you know, I've tried to train people to teach with me, and who I know are great players, and they might have been teachers of other things. So I'm thinking, well, they're a good enough player and they used to be a teacher, and it doesn't always work. Because there's also a way of dealing with students that you either have to be taught it specifically or you have to understand it, because there's a way to tell people things so that they understand it. And you have to understand that not all people learn the same way. So you have to learn to teach the same information in multiple different ways.
That's a great point, Dana. Great point.
Right. It's not, if it were easy, people wouldn't
be a ton of teachers out there.
Right. Or people would just learn how to play, you know, they'd read the directions and learn how to play.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Laura is asking, and I think you've probably covered this already, and it's going to depend on which level class you're teaching, the beginner or the
beyond.
And after the, what do you
beyond beginner.
Beyond. Okay, I was kind of close. Not even close. What topics do you discuss on each of the 3-hour classes? Well, that's probably a whole.
That's a whole, that's an hour unto itself. You got to take my class if you want to know what I talk about.
Yeah, really. That's a whole lot, a whole class syllabus.
But I will say that Beyond Beginner is mostly about the Charleston.
Nice. Important. The most important part of the whole game.
Absolutely.
All righty. Janet asks, what do you think about passing a tile in the Charleston, hoping you may get it back, especially if you have a couple of different hands you could go for? Good question, Janet.
Excellent question. And absolutely, sometimes you have to do that. Now, there's certain things that you have to understand in passing. In the first pass, what you pass in the first pass, if it stays together and no one holds it up, the only chance you have to see it back is the last pass. Think about it. You pass to the right, they pass across, they pass to the left, they pass to the left, they pass across, and then it comes right back to you. So if it is a tile in the, if there's something you're thinking, I don't know if I'm going to want this, don't pass it in the first pass. Did you get that?
Yes, I don't know if he did, but yes, I'm No, that wasn't Heath. That was, sorry, Janet's question.
Okay, but
Sorry.
but as far as passing things that you have to decide between one tile and another. I really want to keep both. What should I pass that will hopefully come back to me? The best thing you pass is the thing that people are passing to you, because you already know they don't like it. So if it's between a tile that I was dealt that I haven't seen any of, or a tile that I was passed, if I want to get it back, I'm going to pass the tile that I was passed, because I at least know that one other player doesn't want that tile. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes good sense. All right, well, if anybody's not clear, you can still add in there. So Heath asked, we're back to Heath.
Back to Heath.
I
Hi,
love
Heath.
your questions, Heath. Why is doing the Charleston for 3 unacceptable? And I'm assuming you mean by the National Mah Jongg League. And she's guessing it's a mathematical possibilities answer that seems to go against your advice to always play by the rules. That's a good point.
That's a very good point, and
Okay,
that's true.
a good point. I was going to ask it before, but we got diverted. So good
Right.
point.
So, but that's only the National Mah Jongg League's rules. And I don't always agree with how they write a rule. And so that's why this is I've written the explanation and description of exactly how it works. So it's written down. So it's just that if you play with 3 and you don't do the Charleston, play a different game, because it's not fun. It's very hard to, you will have more wall games than ever if you just have to play with the tiles you were dealt.
Yeah. And playing by 3, I don't consider that the core rules of the game. The 4-player game to me is,
right.
And that's 3 is a version of it.
Right.
And from the beginning, when it came, the first 3-player was introduced into the rule book, many people started coming up with all different ways and versions of playing the 3-player version. So I kind of feel that's a little bit of an exception to the rule to play that. Yes, I think the Charleston is important for 3-player. 100% agree with that.
Well, and the scenario comes up. You could always be playing by the rules and always have 4 people, and then someone's sick that day. Are you going to cancel your whole Mahjong game because of that? No.
Yeah.
Look, get together and play and try, and try this version, because if you don't do the Charleston and 3-player, you'll cancel your Mahjong game.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. And he just had a comment. She calls it a casual game rather than a friendly one. And regarding that one BAM, she said it was a newer set. So Heath, I have a suggestion. Why don't you go ahead and email me a picture of that one BAM, and I'll get it over to Dana. What do you think about that, Dana?
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love to see it.
Okay, so you can email me, debbie@majcon.com. I'll put it right here in the messages. I'm going to make sure I do it to everybody, because sometimes I forget to change it. And send me a picture of that BAM, because I'm really curious myself. And I'll get it over to Dana as well to take a look at. There you go.
There,
all right.
okay.
What else here? So we have Robin said, when people don't enclose a joker with their exposure, I usually say something. Should I? So in other words, you're talking about nesting or hugging the joker among the tiles. I mean, I teach people to do that just because, if the exposures are a little too close, I don't want somebody who's doesn't, having a hard time seeing the exposures get confused with where the joker belongs. I teach that. What do you think, Dana, about that? I mean, I would let it go. I wouldn't.
I don't think I don't consider that a big deal at all.
No.
As long as they separate their exposures.
Yeah. I
mean, I don't want you to push 2 exposures together and then wonder where a joker might go. But you should separate your exposures.
And that's just came up recently too. in one of the Facebook groups where somebody said, there's no rule, and I don't think you should have to separate your exposures. And somebody else said something which I think is very clever. If the exposures are pushed together, that would be an erroneous exposure.
Exactly, because they would be mixed tiles, which you couldn't do as an exposure.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a good reason when somebody says, I don't have to, nobody says that, it's not in the rule book. Oh my goodness.
Well, it's kind of like having your tiles on your rack.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are people that put their, things they want to discard on the table rather than on the rack. And, the rule is that all the tiles have to be on your rack. And, I tell people, well, there have been people that try and do sleight of hand things. And there's a reason that you say the tiles have to be on the rack.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. 100%. And Robin said, was this Robin? Because it says not mine, or that might be somebody's message. Not my set was today at a tournament in Asheville.
Oh, so she didn't. So
Jacksonville.
The one BAM she's
okay.
that she's talking about, she doesn't have.
Yep. Okay. All right. And Gianna said, thank you, Dana and Debbie. I have to start dinner. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And Janice said, and Dana, let's talk soon. Robin said, yes, I only saw something when they put down a second exposure too close. Oh, you only say something if they put it too close. Yeah.
Yeah. Just spread them apart a little.
Yeah.
Please.
Now, what do you think about, you need to ask nicely, right? Some people, could be a little snippy. You don't want to touch somebody's tiles and separate them, but you need to ask in a kind way. Would you mind separating your tiles a little bit?
Right. As long as you're kind. Yeah. I have a rule. This is trademarked, so you can't make any merch with this because I have it. Never touch another woman's rack.
Woo, baby. Okay. I like
Men always want that shirt.
I love it. I love that saying. It's beautiful.
Well, when you're exchanging, it's when you're exchanging jokers, and I'm like, no, you have to hand it to them. You can't touch another woman's rack.
Yeah, exactly. And the players who won't rack their tiles after they pick. Now, the speedy, fast players that play a very quick game, they're not risking anything there because they're getting it out quickly. But man, just get in the habit. Now, I play a speedy game and I pick and rack, and I don't find it takes more than a second to do that whole transaction there. So what do you say about that, Dana? I had somebody at one of my tournaments who said, I'm not gonna, I don't rack my tile, and I hope that I'm not required to.
Well, all they're doing is offering the opportunity for everyone to call the previously discarded tile. She's giving everyone else a leg up on her. And she might have to give that tile back. It's to her detriment if she doesn't rack her tile.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, my pet peeve is there's no such thing as tapping the tile on the rack.
Your pet peeve. Oh my God. That's another whole session, Dana.
I know. We could have many of these sessions.
Oh my God. Tapping the tiles. What?
Tapping the tile. I tell people when, they've watched someone else play and they come to my class and now they tap a tile. And I said, that's nothing. You're not doing anything there. It has to be in the rack. So if you think that tapping that tile is stopping that previously discarded tile from being alive, it's not.
Yeah. That's why we say, if you're going to teach, you need to know the rules, because there are teachers in my city teaching tapping.
Yeah, no.
That's a dance.
I'm spread right. It's not the Charleston and a tap dance. It's just the Charleston and no tap dancing. And so I'm with you. I'm spreading every time I give a talk. I'm telling people, no, stop tapping.
No. Well, I have to say, this has been an absolute delight, Dana. And I want to say congratulations on being my longest episode of Expert Connect.
I'm sorry, I'm so talkative.
No, it's not that. It was so interesting, and we stopped at the right time for questions, but I mean, all the questions, they were fabulous. So
Well, thanks to all your, your viewers and all the good questions, and to you, Debbie, for doing this. I love people that are spreading the correct Mahjong way.
I am all with you there, baby. I'm passionate about it, and I just want to keep spreading this love of Mahjong and having people learn the right way and grow in their game, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And I thank you so much. And Dana, if you would just hang back when I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and if you would just hang back for a second after everybody leaves. And everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. As always, it's a pleasure. I will see those of you that come on my Wednesday night live stream skill building.